A lot of people are afraid of being judged, so they won't say like, "Oh, I want to." It's kind of like, if you're at a party and you want to tell a good joke, and then the moment calls for it, like, "Oh, I got this nice joke," and all of a sudden you start judging yourself, like, and then someone else says a joke, and you hear laughter, and you're like, "Oh, God,
fuck this guy,
damn it!" It's like, I wish I said that. Well, that's the same feeling because, like, there are certain moments where, like, let's say, I remember this one time I was on this date with this woman, and it was like everything was going horrible. Like we were gonna go to this Japanese restaurant, and I had a reservation, but then I got lost, and we kind of missed the reservation, so we had to go to another Japanese restaurant. And once we were at that other Japanese restaurant, we ordered terrible food, and we had awkward silence.
Oh, man.
And then later, at one point, I had to say, wow, this is a terrible date, huh? Like, I actually said that. I was like, wow, we're having a pretty awful date right now, huh? Like, and she was like, yeah, we are. Like, now, I'm not saying that if you're having a terrible date, just call it out. But in that particular moment, it was telling me, hey, Patrick, just tell her that you're having a hard time with this awkward date right now. And I said it, and that after that, we both actually were kind of we started laughing more about this idea. Like, hey, we're on a terrible date. We're eating terrible sushi. We're having awkward silence.
Let's try to fuck this up. Let's see.
Yeah, let's make it even worse. But then, funnily enough, in that moment, like, it started going really well afterwards. So I think that there is a lot of truth in, if you can speak your truth more and more, that it's very valuable, because I do see the value in it. I just don't see it as in it must be done all the time. Yeah.
The thing that I was also noticing, the thing that we were just talking about, is like the importance of having this playful attitude, right? And I know a lot of guys will think, okay, so Pat's really good. Okay, sometimes be honest. And I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a very logical Asian guy, because I feel like a lot of guys fall in that, honestly. And let's say he's saying, okay, so Pat, how do I become more playful? How do I practice it? And I'm deliberately phrasing the question that way.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, then I would kind of ask you this question. Hey, if you were a fish, how do you swim? Because a fish kind of knows how to swim already. So if we go back to your childhood, I'm assuming that when you were a little kid, that you played in the playground. You swung in the swungs. You made imagination games. You know how to play because it's already inside of you, right? So when someone says, "Well, I'm not very playful," I'm just kind of thinking, okay, well, you probably, if you're not very playful, you're probably just a little more self-conscious now than when you were before. But when we're not conscious, self-conscious of ourselves, when we start thinking about me, like, how do I look? Like, I hope I'm saying the right thing. I hope I'm presenting myself confidently. I hope I'm presenting myself playfully. I hope I can. When you stop thinking about you and how you're coming off so much, naturally, you're going to be more playful. You're going to be more in that light space. You're going to be more nimble. And that's kind of like what I've seen for a lot of people. It's not that they're not playful. It's just that they're very self-conscious in a lot of those moments of when they want to be more playful. So just like that one example I was telling you about, how like everyone, you have this nice joke, and then you want to tell this nice joke because in that moment you want to be really playful because it's a funny joke, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, what if they think that the joke is not funny? Oh, what if they start judging me and seeing that I'm a loser? What if they start seeing that I can't deliver jokes and I can never tell jokes ever again? And then all of a sudden we start to second guess ourselves. And that's the reason why we're not playful. It's not that we're not playful. It's just that we become self-conscious. So you already kind of have that playfulness already inside of you. But if you want to be more playful, notice that light feeling. When you have that light feeling, you're probably going to be more playful with someone. Yeah. What about you? What do you think about this, Jeremy?
I would say, yeah, You kind of hit the nail on the head. It's not that you don't know how to be playful. I think every man actually inherently has what it takes to attract women, to be themselves, to be confident. It's just throughout the years we develop these stories, these patterns and behaviors where we kind of hold ourselves back. And a lot of it's just based on that performance mentality, right?
Mhm.
And I would say it's about really tapping back into who you really are and your core, because it's more, I would say it's this way. It's more about remembering as opposed to developing,
Yeah.
because you already have it.
Well, I would also say, I remember for Valentine's Day, for many years, I would go to this thing called a pillow fight Valentine's event, and
Hmm.
at these kind of events, everyone would bring their pillows on Valentine's Day, and they would start swinging at each other. And I remember for like a few years, I would be going to this thing, and when I looked at everyone, I could see across this entire event of people, like hundreds of people, with their pillows, and I could see that there was not one person who was not playful. They were all playful. Get a pillow, I had one pillow, and they started smacking each other, and it was like men and women were super flirtatious.
Hmm.
Men on men were just like laughing,
Yeah.
and it was like, I don't need to teach you that. You kind of already have that.
Hmm.
Take two pillows and start swinging, and that's how you will become
Go
more
out on the
playful.
street today and do that
Yeah,
shit.
yeah. You know what? Throw a pillow. Give a pillow to someone. You know what? I might make a video out of that now.
There actually is a video where they just throw a lightsaber to someone else and they start
Oh.
having like a random lightsaber fight.
Yeah, just like that. Same scenario. You throw someone a lightsaber, and all of a sudden, that person's gonna figure out how to be playful with you.
Yeah.
If they got a lightsaber, and you got a lightsaber.
Mhm. I got a question for you, and I'm gonna just come from the angle of, let's say, imagine someone that's listening to our stuff and they're thinking, and I know you dealt with this with clients before. They're always thinking, yeah, but. So
Yeah.
I want to come from a very skeptical, or very
Mhm.
like mental angle.
Yeah.
They're like, well, yeah, that makes sense, right? But I don't walk around with lightsabers and pillows all day,
Yeah.
and I don't go to events like that.
Yeah.
And like, even though I know it, I know I'm not supposed to be self-conscious. When I see this beautiful woman in front of me, I like fucking shell up. Like, how can I actually not just know this mentally, but actually get to the state of really not being self-conscious when a beautiful girl is in front of me that I want to interact with? Because I find myself getting in my head all the time, and
Mhm.
I know I'm not supposed to be self-conscious, but me trying to not be self-conscious actually makes me even more self-conscious.
Mhm.
It's like this weird loop.
Yeah. Well, as you were kind of describing it, I was like, whoa, my head is kind of hurting. And I'm saying that because when we start to have a lot on our mind, that's when we get self-conscious. So when we start going with yeah, but yeah, but now we're adding more on top of our thinking, right? Like when we think a lot, we get self-conscious. When we think a lot, we start thinking more about ourselves. So when you see that, yeah, but stop.
Yes.
Stop. That's it. That's it. Because I know that it's very tempting, but people will say things like, "Yeah, but you don't know me. Like
Like, it's
I'm this kind of
different.
guy. I'm a different kind of guy. I'm this. I'm not that playful. Like I really am not that playful. Look at my history. I've had pillows and I have had pillow fights, and you can see that I'm always by the corner. Well, maybe, but chances are that you probably just have a lot of thinking a lot of times when the more you probably have a lot of thinking around yourself. And I'm saying whenever you see that, be like, oh, that's interesting. I'm thinking a lot. Oh, I'm being really self-conscious. Huh. Probably wouldn't be such a good idea to do that. Continue to think that. And in the next minute, the next few seconds, I don't know, the next hour or whenever, a lot of times it just kind of goes away. And you'll start to get that playfulness again. And when you get that feeling, try it out. I think a lot of times we're afraid to just try things out,
That's so true.
and I mean, me too, because I was like, at one point I had all these I had this perfect seduction system where once I start a conversation, then I'll tell a story, then I'll do this and do this, and I try to get better and better at kind of maintaining my interactions. But what I realized that when I did more of this, I never tried new things. I was always like, I was staying by the books because I should stay with what works. But let me tell you, what works best is when you find out what's happening in this situation, what's happening in this moment, and doing and following that impulse more. And when you start following that impulse more, I think you're gonna have way more success in dating, in connecting with women.
Yeah, and I want to add on that point. I think I noticed this. There's a little bit of a meta thing, and I love talking about the thing behind the thing, or like the whole thought experiments, like experience and embodiment, besides the content what we're talking about. And I think a lot of guys beyond everything, and I'm sure you might have noticed this, Pat, is they almost are hoping like a coach will save them, or they're hoping that maybe your coaching, my coaching will save them.
Our coaching will save them.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. You guys hope correctly.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, I think I noticed that sometimes they don't trust themselves enough. Like they don't give themselves enough credit.
Mhm.
And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. Because,
Yeah. Well, I think you're 100% true, Jeremy. I would often hear people say, because a lot of people like to give themselves the given. And what I mean by the given is they like to stamp themselves as I'm the kind of person who. So what I mean by that is they like to say things like, I'm the kind of person who doesn't get dates. I'm the person who is the kind of guy that only has success sometimes. I'm the kind of guy that doesn't really date beautiful women. So they start from that place. And because they start from that given, I am this. Everything else that happens that doesn't fit into it now looks like a fluke to them.
Mhm.
So let's say, for instance, they think I'm not the kind of guy that women like. Okay, so as he walks through the streets and he sees a woman giving him eye contact, he's like, that was a fluke. There's no way it would happen again.
Yeah,
Now,
he's gonna think probably like she's probably laughing at me.
oh yeah, she's probably looking at someone else, looking at the guy behind me. And no matter how many times this happens, he'll continue to believe that very thing. No. It was luck. There's no way like that this person would like me. Because they're starting from that place of the given of I'm the kind of person that, or I'm the kind of person who is this permanent personality. Now, when you can start to see that you're beyond that, when you can start to see that, hey, you are more than the kind, maybe sometimes you're the kind of guy that is attracted to women. Maybe you're the kind of guy that sometimes isn't. Maybe you're the kind of guy that is playful sometimes and not. When you start to see beyond this permanent personality of yours, all of a sudden, things start to open up and show up in your life. And I remember this happened to me a lot of times. I remember even in high school, like I was almost the homecoming king at my high school. But still, I couldn't talk to one girl. I don't know how that's even happened.
I know. I was like, damn, that's actually pretty impressive.
but when I look back at it, I'm like, oh, there were actually a lot of women that were kind of like showing interest, but I was too blinded because I was like, no girl would ever want to talk to me, like
no.
Yeah,
no,
right.
Like,
yeah, I know I'm almost a homecoming king, but no way. And when I look back now, like, oh wow, I missed out on a lot of opportunities because I kept creating the given of my circumstance of who I was. Do you have anything like that, Jeremy?
yeah, it kind of reminds me of how if you believe something about yourself, you're always going to find evidence for that being true. And for example, for me, I used to, since this is a podcast for Asian guys, and I know the whole Asian guy, white girl thing is a big thing, I used to think that only Asian girls would like me. Like that's just been my experiences. Grew up in a suburb. The high school was 70% Asian. Even the college I went to was 25% Asian, so it wasn't that.
Mm.
It was still a pretty sizable ratio, right? And I used to think like, you know what? I read the stats. I've been studious. I've done the research. White girls do not like Asian guys. The only white girls that like Asian guys are the really weird anime girls who are like usually like I'd say like overweight and just like not attractive. And I was like convinced about that. So every time I saw like, let's say a Asian girl with a white guy, which is kind of adding to the whole like race dynamics thing, or when I saw like an Asian guy with another Asian girl, or just like a white girl with a white guy, I was like, see, they don't like us. And you know, like even though I read it, I still couldn't believe it because I didn't experience it myself. And the thing that Pat, I think you're alluding to is our level of thinking is what also creates our results. Because if we keep thinking at the same level of thinking, we're going to start thinking the same thoughts and creating the same behaviors that come from those thoughts that will create the same results. And what we need to do is kind of look at things in a new direction and look at it with new possibility to allow us to kind of, I don't want to say manifest or like call in because that starts to sound really spiritual, but allow us to really kind of see new possibilities and opportunities and kind of step into the actions that will allow us to bring that to reality, as well as notice what's really around us. Because I will get a little bit spiritual here. Like there is an abundant world out there, but sometimes we just can't see it because we're so dead set on our beliefs of how we think we are.
Yeah. Well, here's something that's really interesting. Like no, like going back to a human being, we think, right? We think thoughts. We think, and for us, we like to hold on to like the negative thoughts that we get. We think that they're more real, excuse me, than the good ones. Like when we see a good one, like, oh wow, I'm really really cool. Like you won't be thinking, well, that can't always be true. You're like, it might be true. And then you might think like, oh, I'm a really handsome man. You're like, like when you're feeling good, you're like, it could be kind of true. But when you get like something like, oh, you really suck. Oh, you're really unworthy of her love. Oh, you not the kind of guy that deserves models. All of a sudden, oh, that's real. That's so really true. Real. Yeah. So a lot of times I've noticed that for guys, a lot of times your biggest insecurity, whatever that insecurity is that you have, like, oh, you're fat, you're skinny, you're short, you're unworthy, whatever that is, chances are you believe that to be the most real thing of all things. So even though you probably get all these other thoughts of like, oh, you're funny, you're a good guy, you're like, that might be true, but this thing. This big insecurity thing, I really am disgusting to women. Like that is really true. Well, I would just kind of say, question that. Is it maybe it's just something that you kind of got tricked by to think that it's true. And when I start to see beyond, you know, like this thought's a good thought, this thought's a bad thought, this is really me, this is really me, I stopped worrying about that stuff so much. Because before, I was always trying to find my worthiness in love. And then I realized, oh, I'm not the guy. I mean, I'm going to experience a bunch of these things, these thoughts of who I am. But in the end, they're just ideas. They're not really real. They're just kind of like illusions. And I know I'm getting kind of a little bit spiritual right now. But I think to me, when I start to see beyond who I think I was, and like that's when everything showed up. Like new possibilities start to show up. And I know that like if you can start to see that, you're looking more so in the right direction. Because now the possibilities are more endless.